Hello, guys, and welcome back to the Suffer Up podcast with Nate and Ryan, where our mission and goal is to encourage and lead others to suffer with purpose. We strive to help others level up in life with an emphasis on spiritual, mental, and physical well being. We are Nate and Ryan, two regular dudes that met in an ultramarathon race and are trying to fulfill our mission and our goal. So, thank you for tuning in today to this episode as we are going to discuss Nehemiah chapter 1 and 2, and some of the lessons that can be learned there. Before we get started, we want to give a very special thank you and shout out to our sponsors and supporters of this channel. Soft Socks being our first supporter, the compression fitting toe sock for your feet. We love them. We wear them on all of our long runs and hard adventures. They have stood up to some long, hard, hot miles. Right now in Florida, it is very hot. And so they are veteran owned, podiatrist approved. We love them and we support them as they have supported us. If you'd like to try a pair of soft socks for yourself, you can use the link in the description of this podcast and use discount code SUFFER10 to receive 10% off at checkout. We also want to give a very special thank you to a new supporter of the channel, and that is 55 Miles. They make anything from UV blocker, chapstick, anti-chafing cream, and blister blocker to keep you outdoors and enjoying the outdoors for longer. I have adopted it into my regular routine now. Before I go out for anything that's longer than an hour, I'm going to put it on my body, and I have avoided any chafing with coming back from my runs absolutely drenched. We love it. It's safe for your body. It's got all natural ingredients. And so we support their mission. They're based out of Colorado, family owned, USA owned, and operated. If you'd like to try 55 miles for your next run or adventure, you can use the link in the description of this podcast and use discount code SUFFERUP to receive 20% off at checkout. So thank you, 55 Miles. And last but not least, we have Muckender's wipes and towelettes. They make a large towelette that is also good and safe for your skin. They smell great. We keep them in the truck to wash up after either working on something or just getting some dirt and grime off of your body so that you can enjoy the car ride home. If you'd like to try out Muckender's wipes and support them and also support us, you can use discount code SUFFERUP to receive a discount at checkout. Thanks so much, guys, for tuning in to this episode of the Suffer Up podcast. We love you all so much, and thanks for your support. So, Ryan, kick us off with Nehemiah.
Nehemiah is one of those books in the Bible that a lot of people haven't heard of. It's one of the minor prophets, not minor in importance, just minor in size. It's only, a few pages long in my Bible versus something like, Joshua or, First Samuel or something that's got a lot more chapters to it. So Nehemiah is often overlooked because of that. But right now in my Saturday morning workout group that I'm a part of, we've been going through Nehemiah, and we're actually still going through it. But we've just been talking about it and relating it back to life now, and it's been really impactful in my life, and I think that it'd be really good to share here on the podcast. So we're going to talk about Nehemiah 1 and 2 today. A little bit of backstory on Nehemiah. Nehemiah was the cupbearer to the king at the time in, where was they? That's good English.
What?
I said, when was they? Or where was they? All right. So Nehemiah was the cupbearer to the king, King Artaxerxes, the king of Persia at the time in his day. And a cupbearer is essentially a high-ranking royal official who's responsible for serving wine and drinks to the king. But their role is way more important than just that. Because the kings face constant threats of assassination, the cupbearer would often take drinks before the king, like taste it and test it beforehand to make sure that it wasn't poisoned. So he was very important, but he was also kind of disposable. In a
Sucks to be
way.
that guy.
Yeah. So this life or death responsibility meant that the cupbearer was like far more than a server. He was very important and trusted, often would be a trusted advisor to the king also. But again, like I said, also kind of disposable, we, the king's so important, we can't lose him, but we can lose you instead. So Nehemiah's got this really important job, but it's not really a glorious job, not one that I think a lot of people are raising their hand for. So that is who Nehemiah is. Nehemiah is also a Jewish person in Persia, serving under the king. So that's his family history. Is he's from, his family and ancestors are from Jerusalem, and he is of Jewish descent. So in Nehemiah 1, you see that while Nehemiah's serving the king, doing his thing, he hears about how the walls of Jerusalem are destroyed, how everyone who had survived the exile are back in the Jerusalem area, and the walls of Jerusalem are broken down. Its gates have been burned with fire. Um, and so you hear that, like, he's just finding out about this. He's just hearing this from who knows where, and how long it's been like this, nobody knows. But Nehemiah hears this, and his first instinct is just sadness. It says in Nehemiah 1:4, when I heard these things, I sat down and wept. For some days I mourned and fasted and prayed before the God of heaven. Um, so this just downright broke his heart. It's just a wall around the city. That's what we may be thinking right now, but to them, that was a symbol of their strength as a people. That was their symbol of, or not just their symbol, but that was their security as a group of people. When they're in Jerusalem, the walls and the gates are what keep out your enemies. And so this is a very important thing to them, physically, but also spiritually and just metaphorically, I guess. If your walls are crumbling down, it's not a good thing.
Yeah.
So the first thing he does is he feels this conviction, and he sits down and he weeps. He fasted and prayed. That's a really good way of looking at things. I wish that more of us would do that. When we feel some kind of conviction on our hearts, what's the first thing we do? A lot of times we act out of emotion, and we just make hasty decisions because we're upset. But it says the first thing he did was he sat down and wept. For some days I mourned and fasted and prayed. So there was nothing hasty about this.
No.
He took his time and went straight to God with his issues. So he felt this conviction and he prayed to God. And the entire remainder of chapter 1 here is his prayer to God, basically just saying, like, Lord, you are awesome and great, and how big you are. Like, he starts off by praising God, telling him how, I know you are these things. Why have you let this happen to our people? And please remember your people, Lord. Remember that promise that you made to Moses way back when, saying, if you are unfaithful, I will scatter you among the nations. But if you return to me and obey my commands, then even if your exiled people are at the farthest horizon, I will gather them from there and bring them to the place I have chosen as a dwelling for my name. So he's asking God to remember that. Obviously, God doesn't need help remembering something he knows, but he's just restating what God promised to these people long before him, that if they turn towards God, that he will bless them and bring them back together. And so that's the first point that we make of this, is that he was convicted and he prayed to God. He was convicted and he confessed his conviction to the Lord.
Yeah, and I mean, the Bible has also talked several times about the power of fasting, right?
Oh yeah.
And the purpose of fasting, there's obviously medical reasons to fast, but biblical aspects of fasting, it really puts you in a headspace of like very intentional prayer, crying out to God. And so when you see people in the Bible fasting, there was usually, like you said, a purpose or a conviction behind why they were fasting. And so, and he's weeping over a just reason. Like, he just lost something, like you said, that was extremely beneficial to them. So that really is quite powerful, how much that impacted these people.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Before we move on to chapter 2, I wanted to point out something else from chapter 1 where it says, chapter 1, verse 1, in the month of Kislev in the 20th year. So it specifies the month there. And that's important because chapter 2 also specifies the month. It says in the month of Nisan or Nisan. I don't know how you say it. Those months are 4 months apart. So in the months of Kislev in chapter 1 here, he finds out about Jerusalem. He weeps and mourns and prays the Lord. And then in chapter 2 here, we'll get into that next, but there's a 4-month gap here where he sits with this basically and allows that processing to take place, that refining to take place, that time with God to actually like work through this emotion, this conviction that he feels. And then chapter 2 starts in the month of Nisan in the 20th year of the king, Artaxerxes. Thank you. There we go. When wine was brought for him, I took the wine and gave it to the king. I had not been sad in his presence before. So the king asked me, "Why does your face look so sad when you are not ill? This can be nothing but sadness of the heart." So now, after 4 months of dealing with this internally and with God, now he allows it to be shown and display to those around him that something is visibly upsetting him, that this is actually, a bother. And I just think that that's really neat that it took that long. We're in a society now where we think everything needs to happen so fast. We need to respond to things. You get a text message from somebody and they're angry and you feel the need to respond to them immediately before you even have time to think about it or process it or pray about it. And this dude took 4 months to think, pray, and mull this over before he even opened up and let somebody else see it. That's just incredible to me.
Yeah.
So the king asked him, what's wrong? Well, why you look so sad, man? And the first thing Nehemiah says, he doesn't say this to the king. The next thing that's written is, I was very much afraid, but I said to the king, and he goes on to say, but I was very much afraid. So like, we just talked about this in another podcast about fear. Like, he's afraid to tell the king what's on his heart, what he's been praying about and thinking about and weeping about for 4 months. He's afraid to talk to the king about that. That just seems so bizarre. But what do you think he was afraid of?
Just probably some sort of retaliation of like, why? Would be my guess. Like what's he gonna think? What's he gonna say?
The ifs.
Yeah.
Like, is the king gonna be mad? Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what he was afraid of, but he was afraid. But even in that, he still went on to tell the king why he was upset. It says, but I said to the king, may the king live forever. Why should my face not look sad when the city where my ancestors are buried lies in ruins and its gates have been destroyed by fire?
Or maybe he was afraid because maybe the same thing was going to happen if he rebuilt.
That it's all going to happen again. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a little bit of fear and doubt in his heart that God will actually allow this to be restored in the first place.
Yeah, or he knows it's a big undertaking and he's fearful. Because, I mean, at that time, they were having a bunch of, imagine trying to build something and then a bunch of people come and attack and you got to.
Yeah, while you're trying to rebuild, you're also trying to fight.
The enemy destroyed it. So then if I rebuild it, it's basically asking for another battle. And we just went through it. Why do we want to go through that again?
Yeah.
Which is, I think that's just fear.
Yeah. But nonetheless, in the face of that fear, he still faces the fear and talks to the king, tells him what's bothering him. And the king says, well, what is it that you want? Nehemiah's first response is not to answer. It says, then I prayed to the God of heaven and I answered the king. So before responding to the king, he says a little prayer. I think we could all take a lot of lessons from that right there. Maybe a little prayer before we speak would be wise. I know for myself, a lot of times I speak before I pray and some dumb stuff comes out of my mouth.
We're all guilty of that.
But he answered the king. He said, if it pleases the king, and if your servant has found favor in his sight, let him send me to the city in Judah where my ancestors are buried so that I can rebuild it. And then the king, with the queen sitting beside him, asked me, how long will your journey take, and when will you get back? It pleased the king to send me, so I set a time. I also said to him, if it pleases the king, may I have letters to the governors of the... No, I'm going to speed through this some. Have letters to the people around them, basically asking for safe travel and asking for timber to be made from the for the gates and the temple and the city wall. And then it goes on and says, and because the gracious hand of my God was on me, the king granted my request. So he's afraid to tell the king what's actually going on, but he does it anyways. The king asked him, well, what do you want me to do about it, basically? And before speaking, you see Nehemiah pray, and then he tells the king what he wants. He's like, I want to go rebuild the wall. And while I'm at it, I'd like for you to send letters with me so that nobody around us attacks me. I'd also like a letter to this guy over here who's got really good timber, because we're going to need some beams for our gates and our temple and everything that we need to build in there. And you see that because the gracious hand of my God was on me, the king granted my request. So if we follow this method through our lives, where we feel this conviction and then we take the courage to do things even when we're fearful, and we put God first, we're praying and asking him for assistance before we speak of our own desires, God will bless you. He blesses Nehemiah here and gives him exactly what he's asking for. And that to me was just a very impactful thing as I read through it, that like we tend to do things all out of order here in our current lives.
Right.
And that doesn't provide the best results. But when we do things in the order that God designed us to, putting him first, and you know, first we have to feel that conviction. We feel the desires that God has placed on our hearts. And then we put him first and we ask him, what do you want us to do about this? Then when we're asked with that same question, well, how do you want to go forward and live your life? Again, he puts God first and prays to God. God, how do you want me to answer this?
Yeah.
And then we give our answer. That it can just change your entire life by changing the order of things. You don't necessarily have to change who you are or what you're doing. You know, maybe you're already living for Christ, but you're doing things out of order. You're trying to make changes in your life or change something in your community, but you're not praying about it first. You go in and say, oh, I want to make this better, and you start doing things before you pray to God. Well, hold on, you're out of order here.
Yeah.
So the order of things is something that I took from this, that order does matter. The next big point that I took away from all this was that Nehemiah is essentially a nobody. I mean, he's important to the king, but that's about it. He's not some important person in the royal family. He's not a king himself. He's not somebody that goes on to kill Goliath like David. I mean, like I said in the beginning, a lot of people have not heard of this book or haven't read it often. If you have, it's short, you read through it, and you check that book off in your yearly Bible reading and just move along. So this nobody, Nehemiah here, somehow manages to earn his place in the Bible and make a huge impact that we'll see later on. That is incredibly indicative of the ripple effect of one man. One man can have effects far beyond what he can see or dream, because God will continue to work all things for his good.
Yeah.
But we see Nehemiah wants to rebuild a wall. God's going to allow that to happen. He allows the wall to be rebuilt. And then 400, 500 years later, when Jesus comes walking into Jerusalem or riding into Jerusalem, I should say, on a donkey, he rides through one of the gates in this wall.
Yeah.
This wall that would not have existed had Nehemiah not rebuilt it.
Yeah. So one could argue that, I mean, even though he was just an ordinary dude, he was an important figure because he was entrusted
100%.
to supervise.
Yes, absolutely.
And so that's like, yeah.
And that's what I'm getting at is we
Yeah.
all are.
Right.
We all are, whether you're, the president of the United States or Joe Schmo, the firefighter.
Yeah. I don't know who that'd be.
I don't know, Nate. We all have the ability to make that ripple. We'll call it the ripple effect. We all can have the ripple effect.
Yeah.
All it takes is one stone and some water to cause a ripple. And as those ripples go out from the stone, they get smaller and smaller, and you may not see them anymore, but they're still there. They're still going, and the energy continues moving. And that to me is just incredibly hope inspiring. Like, you don't have to be somebody special or somebody important, because I know a lot of people will say that the reason that I can't do XYZ is because I'm not famous, or I'm not rich, or I don't have a bunch of people under me to lead. It's like, man, it doesn't matter. When you feel a conviction from the Lord and you sit with it, you pray on it, and you're sure that that is the conviction from the Lord, man, just go for it. You can be afraid, but just go for it, because God's going to do some amazing things.
Yeah.
God's going to create that ripple through you. Are you willing to be the stone that makes the ripple?
Yeah.
Or are you going to let your fear hold you back and sit you out?
Yeah, that's really good. One thing that I pulled from this too, while we were sitting here talking, or you were talking, I was listening. Nehemiah 2 verse 17, it says, "Then I said to them, you see the trouble we are in, how Jerusalem lies in ruins with its gates burned. Come, let us build the wall of Jerusalem, that we may no longer suffer derision." Well, I looked up, because I'm a fireman, I looked up what derision means. Derision is the act of showing contempt, mockery, or scornful ridicule towards someone or something.
Yeah.
And so the word shares its root with the Latin verb, I'm going to butcher it, but the way I would pronounce it would be redere, which means to laugh. So mockery. And then when you go, what's up?
My Bible says disgrace there.
Disgrace, yeah.
Disgrace and mockery, yeah.
And so then in verse 18, I'm going to read 18 and 19.
Yeah.
"And I told them of the hand of my God that had been upon me for good, and also of the words that the king had spoken to me. And they said, let us rise up and build. So they strengthened their hands for the good work." And then, so yeah, that's enough for the point I'm trying to get to here is they were fearful. The things that we said about why he was fearful, like when you posed me that question, I think still stand true. Like, there's probably a flood of fear. But what we do know to be 100% factual is that they were fearful of mockery.
Yeah.
And so what I think is cool here, and I had the thought on a previous podcast, but it escaped my mind like it always does, is the moment that I quit caring what other people think is when I found victory in things. Like, I don't report to anybody else. I mean, when I'm at work, obviously I want to keep my boss happy and all that, but they basically put all the fear of being mocked and just said, let's rally together and let's get to work here. Let's rise up and build. So they strengthen their hands for the good work. And through God can give you that peace to do the hard thing that you feel convicted about, and that that you feel moved or convicted to do. And it seems hard, scary, whatever. They fasted, they prayed, and really the bottom line, they were afraid of being mocked. They were afraid of what other people thought. And so they said, no, let's get to work. Let's start building. And I just think that that's a really good, applicable takeaway from that.
Yeah. So there's two big takeaways I got from that section there of 17, verse 17 through 19. Actually all the way through 20. So number one, you see Nehemiah tell the people in Jerusalem, the other Jewish people, say, you see the trouble we're in, Jerusalem lies in ruins. And he tells them, come, let us rebuild the wall of Jerusalem, and we will no longer be in disgrace. So they're already in disgrace. They're already being mocked.
Yeah.
So it's 6 1, half dozen the other.
Sure.
We either get mocked for being in disrepair, or we get mocked for trying to rebuild it. Like they're going to make fun of us either way.
Sure.
People suck, and you just got to deal with it. I mean, like get over exactly what you just said. Get over what they're saying and do what you want to do or need to do anyways. But he tells them, like, come, let us rebuild the wall. And I'm going to fill in the blank here. I'm totally guessing, speculating at this. I'm going to guess that some of the people in the crowd were kind of like, I don't know about that, man. Like, this is a big job, big undertaking. It doesn't say that.
Sure.
But it does go on to say, I also told them about the gracious hand of my God on me and what the king had said to me. They replied, let us start rebuilding. So they began this good work. So he tells them, let's rebuild the wall. My speculation, completely my speculation, not in the Bible here, is that some people may have been like, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
Why should we listen to you?
Well, it's just knowing how humans are. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then verse 18 is basically the answer to that. I told them about the hand of my gracious God on me and what the king had said. So he tells them his testimony. He tells them about the past few months when he felt this conviction, and then he finally went to the king with it, and everything he asked for the king to do and to give, and that it all happened. And he's like, this is proof. Like, this is what God wants for me and for us to do. And his testimony encouraged them, that they then replied, let us start rebuilding.
Yeah.
So that's just the power of one man's testimony, even in the face of fear and mockery, that we can inspire others. It doesn't take being the CEO of a mega corporation to be inspiring. Sometimes it's just as simple as sharing your testimony, and that's what gets through to people.
Yeah.
And then in verse 19, like you said, Sanballat, Tobiah, and Geshem, they mocked and ridiculed us. And they said, what is this you are doing? They asked, how are you rebelling against the king? Or are you rebelling against the king? I answered them by saying, the God of heaven will give us success. We, his servants, will start rebuilding. But as for you, you have no share in Jerusalem or any claim to historic right or right to it. So there's always going to be those haters.
Yeah.
There's always going to be the people that, laugh at you when you're down, laugh at you when you're up. It doesn't matter. They're just there to sit on the sidelines and point fingers and laugh. They have no share in this, and that's fine. We want those people to come to the Lord and bring them up with us, but at the end of the day, you can only do so much. And if they're just going to sit there and point fingers and laugh, then so be it.
Yeah.
You do your thing.
That's good. I like that. Conviction. I'm going to make sure I recap it right. We got it written down here. Conviction, confession. Is that a second?
Yep. You
and
pray
then construction.
Yeah.
And then build up. Yeah. So our three takeaways here: conviction, confession, and construction. A lot of times you can have a conviction about something, and when God gets a hold of your heart like that, sometimes it hurts and it really resonates and stings. So when God gets a hold of your heart, you need to listen to that and do what Nehemiah did. It's okay to weep and mourn, fast, pray. You feel convicted, confess those things to God. And then from there, it's time to move on. And it's time to get to work and start working with your hands and building what it is that God is convicting you to build or do. And you just never know how he may use you, and you don't know that. And so don't put a cap on God, and don't limit him to what he could possibly use you for. So I like those 3 points. It's really good.
Yeah. I love this book of Nehemiah, and I would leave you guys with this. Go give it a read. Read these first 2 chapters and then read the rest of the book. Not that long. I love this book specifically because it kind of points to the past and the future. The historical past of this is you see the Jewish people constantly running to God and then straying away from God and then running back to God and straying from God. And it's just this constant slinky effect. And then the future look of this is that you see Jesus come down from heaven and restore our relationship with the Lord, just like Nehemiah rebuilt the wall and restored the pride and the peace with God with the Jewish people there. Jesus does the same thing. He rebuilds the wall, but the wall is metaphorical in his case, and he is the cornerstone for it. And so, as he rebuilds that wall and creates a new foundation for us to build our faith upon, um, you kind of get to see a reflection of how Nehemiah was convicted and rebuilt the wall of Jerusalem for those people. So it's a really good book, in my opinion. It's like about midway through the Bible, and it does a good job at looking back at the first half and looking ahead at the second half of the Bible. So get in your Bible and give it a read.
Really good stuff. We hope that this episode today, you pulled something from it, gained something from it, and walk away with a better understanding of a better way to just deal with conviction. And if God is tugging at your heart, listen to him and give him a chance as far as what he might have you do. So, time to put those convictions to action. So, thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of the Suffer Up podcast. Again, where our mission is to encourage and lead you, our listeners, and others to suffer with a purpose. We strive to help others level up in life with an emphasis on spiritual, mental, and physical well-being. Please give us a follow if you're on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, whatever. Like this, share it, subscribe. Please. It really helps us out to be able to promote our podcast as well as grow our following. And ultimately, it reaches more people that way. And we want to try to build that community. So
share this with one person you think who it may benefit.
That's it. So thanks so much, guys. We love y'all. Stay tuned every Monday for a new episode. And as always,
suffer up.